Welcome to Jay's Daily Pre-Market Briefing for Monday, February 26th, 2018. And today we're going to do some bonus markets, kind of a preview of what I'm going to be doing with the upcoming subscription service. We'll do multiple markets, as I said before. And so I just thought I'd add a few this morning, give you guys a bonus, give you guys a good start to the week. So we look at the Dow first. This is the Dow eMini futures March contract. We have come up to a very key level. Last week, the 24,701. We got a bounce off of it, and then also we pierced through it, and then back above it. So no close on this chart, on this daily chart, below 24,701, and that launched us up right up to this key zone up here. 25,410 to 25,864. There's a minor level in between, 25,673. Ultimately, if we get back above 25,410, I'm expecting it to go up to 25,864, and that would be the last chance for any of the shorts, any of the bears to come in. Once we're above 25,864, I'm expecting us to go a lot higher on the Dow, probably test those January highs. For some reason, if 25,410 does hold, look for a move, a retest down to 24,701. Below 24,701, we're probably going down to low 24,000s, if not into the mid 23s. You got 23,592 way down there too on the Dow. Moving along to our look at the bonds, 30-year bonds. You'll recall from a while back the 149 level was the key on bonds. We did some multiple attempts at this back in July last year, as well as October. And then in January, we got a nice bounce off 149.04. And then finally, we broke through it in mid-January, and big move down since then, coming to a key area. So what I'm expecting now is either we'll get a retest of 143 or 142.13, possibly even below that into the 142s and 141s. If I squeeze the chart, I don't have enough data on here, but there are some previous lows down where they have that gold zone below that 142.13 level. But for today and this week, what I'd be looking for is a retest of 143 or 142.13, and to the upside, 145 has to hold. Otherwise, then the short side would be off, and we'd probably be going all the way back up to test the breakdown point up around 149.04 to 148.30 on the 30-year bond. Going over to Nasdaq futures. Nasdaq finally broke above that key area. You recall last week. If you recall last week, you looked at this zone, the 67.48 quarter, 67.30 quarter, and above it 68.57 half to 69.04 quarter. You'll recall that we didn't get any close within either of those two zones last week. Almost every single day last week, I think every single day actually, with the exception of Friday, we did not get any close above or below either of those zones. So now that we're above that 69.04 quarter, we got to close above it. That has to hold. So 68.57.50 to 69.04 quarter. If it holds, look to move back up to the upside to test the January highs and beyond. I'm expecting us to go into the 7,000s. If we do get back below 68.57.50, then the long side would probably be off in the short term, and you'd want to be looking at shorts, but we do still have the obstacle to the downside of 67.30 quarter to 67.48 quarter. Below that, you got a lot of room to move down into the 6400s and 6300s on the Nasdaq. Looking at Bitcoin, not much to report. As we talked about last week, we're kind of caught between these two zones like the Nasdaq was. We're caught between these two zones on Bitcoin futures. So look for the market to play in and around those for now. So you could look for longs around 9,500 to 9,100, and look for shorts 12,200s to 13,500, 600s. But once we get above 13,500, I think the short side would be off, at least for the short term, and we're probably looking at a test of probably 17,000 and beyond. However, if this zone 12,190 to 13,40, 495 holds on a retest, then I'd expect us to continue down. Again, the key obstacle to the downside, 91.10 to 95.15 on Bitcoin futures. Keep in mind, $50,000 margin on this. You're probably better off playing fractions of Bitcoins or trading CFDs. So that's my 2 cents on that. Look into that. I would just be using the futures as a potential proxy or confirmation for whatever you might be doing with Bitcoin through other instruments. Looking at 6E again, the last 3 days on 6E of last week, very boring. Nothing really to report. Very tight ranges last week on the last 3 days of last week. So on these Euro futures for this week, as you can see by the arrows, the key area for the upside right now is 123.310. As long as we can stay above that, I'm expecting a move back up into the 126s. If we get below the 122.11.5, look out, then I'd be expecting us to at least go down to test the 120 handle, but even more likely the 118 handle, as well as into the mid 117s and mid 116s on the euro. Moving along to gold. This key area, we're back above it. We've seen a lot of activity. It's a minor area overall, but we've seen a lot of activity here on gold, as you can tell by the arrows. As long as we're above that 1330.1 to 1327.8, I'm expecting us to go back up, test the January highs, as well as the September swing high you can see back there from last year. We'll go back up there. We'll get up to 1381.1 and probably up to the 1406 level. However, if we do get below 1307.7, look out below, because then I'd expect a test of the mid 1200s, probably all the way down to at least the 1250. There is some key areas, 1288.8 and 1278.1. But ultimately, if those are broken, then we're probably going down to the mid 1200s on gold. But for now, it looks like we're up. So stick with longs until we get either much higher or we get below that 1307.7. Moving along to crude oil. Crude oil broke through that key zone. We have 62.10 to 62.92. If you'll recall, I've made an adjustment. Now that level is probably 62.10 to 62.69. Expecting crude to continue up. Really just looking for what happens when we get to 65.80, 66.40. But ultimately, I think we'll break through there and get to 66.81 as well as into the 67s. That scenario would be off if we get back below 62.10. And most definitely if we get below 60.57, below 62.10 and 60.57, then I'd be looking for us to go into the low 59s and potentially into the mid 57s. In terms of what to look for this week, keep in mind Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern, Draghi is speaking before the European Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee. So be careful Monday if you're trading during the U.S. session. What he speaks will get picked up on Twitter and on some of the other news outlets, and then the algos and HFTs pick that up. So there can be some volatile moves back and forth on markets like the euro and potentially other markets, depending what he says about interest rates. Also got new home sales, and then that's it for the U.S. morning. Going into Tuesday, A bit of European news, preliminary CPIs from Germany and Spain. Weidmann is speaking during the London session, so about their Bundesbank annual report. So keep that in mind if you're trading during the London session. And then going into Tuesday, U.S. session, core durable goods, as well as Powell will be testifying, House Financial Services Committee. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. I think the good thing is that is starting, before the stock market opens. So he will already have been testifying for an hour at that point. So maybe we still get some good moves through the U.S. morning session. You got consumer confidence at 10 a.m. as well. Do have some news out of China. Chinese New Year is now over. Golden Week is finished as well. And so now we've got some news coming out of China, manufacturing and non-manufacturing PMI during the Asian session. Wednesday, not much going on throughout the European session. Do have the CPI for the Eurozone, but other than that, not a lot going on during the European and London session. And then Wednesday, U.S. preliminary GDP. It looks like Wednesday is probably going to be a nice day in terms of some decent moves. So just be aware of the news that's coming out there. You got the GDP, PMI, pending home sales, crude oil inventories. So keep an eye on those during the U.S. morning session. And we do have Australian news during the Asian session on Wednesday as well as Caixin manufacturing PMI during the Asian session as well, coming out of China. Not much going on Thursday during the London session until the British news manufacturing PMI, and then Powell will be testifying during the U.S. session. One thing to keep in mind: the Fed does keep an eye on the personal consumption expenditure. Apparently, that's one of the ones they like to watch. So keep your eye on that one. It's marked here as an orange on Forex Factory, but keep that one in mind. Powell testifying at 10, and also manufacturing PMI. He'll be before the Senate Banking Committee. Unfortunately, that's right in the middle of the morning in the U.S. session, but just be aware of that in case what he says is picked up and executed by the HFTs and algos. And then on Friday, we have Prime Minister May's speech, I guess, about the tentative deal from Brexit, the ongoing saga, or shall we call it a soap opera. She's speaking on Friday, and so that'll probably happen during the London session. So if you're trading London, just be aware of that. They also got construction PMI. And then Carney will also be speaking during the London session. I'm sure he'll do that after May has finished her speech. But it's on cryptocurrencies anyway. So, but just be aware that something he says gets picked up there. And then really Friday, U.S. session, not much going on. Canadian GDP and revised University of Michigan consumer sentiment. So overall, a moderately busy week for news. So there should still be some nice moves this week. But the key, I think, this week is going to be these speeches. Draghi, Powell, Carney, May, they're all speaking this week. So keep that in mind. Know the news times and control your risk. Trade well, control risk. And we'll see you in the next video. And I'll have more on the subscription and other services we're going to be introducing that traders will be interested in. And we'll see you in the next video.